Hello, you're very welcome to AFI Weekly here on the Under Centre podcast. Dara here with you. Delighted to be joined by Alex and Rian this week. Alex, how are you?
Fantastic.
And Rian, how are you?
Excellent. We didn't have any football at the weekends. It felt a bit gross, but at the same time, we have playoffs to look forward to this week. So happy out.
Absolutely. Well, we should have had football at the weekend, but we didn't. And that's the thing that we'll get into soon enough for sure. It is playoff week. We are finally here. The Shamrock Bowl and now the newly named Harp Bowl. I'm sure the Sims had something to do with that for sure in the naming of that for Division 1. We also have one Shield semi-final, but we don't have any plate semi-finals. Again, something we're going to obviously discuss in depth in the next couple of minutes due to teams, forfeit seasons, bylaws, everything. So strap in for the next hour. We have plenty to discuss. First of all, lads, we like Rian said, we haven't had a week off this week, or we haven't had a week of games this week to look back at. Kind of, Alex, for myself and yourself, full prep mode for the semi-final going into it. Rian, sort of, we're getting a glimpse now into what it's going to be like after the 27th of July for the next couple of months before the NFL is back. I don't know about you, but I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not nice. I'm probably going to have to find like the Korean League or something to follow if they're playing at the moment. Who knows? But it's whenever there's no football at all on, including the domestic game, it's a tough time, but sure, we'll live.
Yeah, well, look, we'll get on with it. But Alex, I have that, that gif of Dave Chappelle, when he's trying to play the drug addict, he's scratching. You got any league games there to watch? Have you? It's hard up for a few league games.
Yeah. Any more than plate semi-finals? No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
all fresh out.
We'll all be scratching around for a football fix, but thankfully I think we've got 5 cracking matchups on the card for this weekend, so plenty to sate ourselves with between now and the end of July.
Yeah, and I know, of course, look, someone's going to come in the comments and say, look, at least the flag league is starting. Yeah, but, myself and my relationship with flag football took a turn last season trying to look after a team that didn't go well, and I'm not getting involved in anything to do with flag this year. So I guess I'm going to have to
work on flag is one of those with a much better participation sport anyway. It's much better to play a flag than stand there watching it.
Oh, absolutely for sure. Well, look, listen, that's for, I guess, whoever else wants to talk about flag this year. Fortunately, someone's gone on vacation. Like, not actual vacation, it's just not doing a show every week after the 27th of July. Or what's the Tuesday after that? I don't know. But anyway. So look, listen, let's get straight into the show. We're going to get into those semi-finals in a little bit, but we have to start with sort of the big news of last week. Despite the no football, there was still plenty to talk about. And of course, it's concerning Division 1 and the Donegal Derry Vipers and the NI Razorbacks. We got a statement from the Vipers in the middle of last week on their socials stating that the league had informed them that their season will be forfeited in all games, going down as 30-0 losses following their 2 forfeits this year against the Mavericks and the Crusaders. Of course, this is in the bylaws that if you do concede 2 games, that your league season is then forfeited, all games finishing 30-0 to whoever the opponent was. This also means that they were not eligible for the plate playoffs. Also in the plate playoffs, the Jets are illegible due to their forfeits and abandoned games as well. So that meant that originally that the Causeway Giants were going, because they finished 5th, were going to get a bye straight into the final and would face the winner of the Razorbacks and the Crusaders. But what we were told just yesterday, that the Razorbacks will not be participating in the plate either, after they informed the Crusaders that they will not be traveling down to Newbridge for their semi-final. So it's going to just be a final straight away between the Crusaders and the Giants on July 21st. This is, of course, the second forfeit for the Razorbacks in as many games, if you count the Cowboys forfeiting at halftime. Obviously, they didn't play the Vipers game if they were still going to play Viper game, I don't know. All intentions was that they were before the league made the decision. Now, we did ask the question on socials about what should be done in the future to try and avoid any more of these forfeits and teams having to forfeit the league. We will get into that, what people are saying. If you didn't already and you're watching the stream, put a comment if you're watching this on YouTube or put it in the Instagram chat. I'll keep an eye on that over the next few minutes. But Rian, I'll start with you first on this one. First of all, your reaction to the news of both the Vipers and the Razorbacks, and then I guess what you think should be done to avoid these sort of forfeits going forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a head scratcher, the one with the Vipers and the Razorbacks. I'm not 100% sure on what the exact situation is, but from the sounds of what the Vipers were saying in their statement, this game was called off by the league because they were in a forfeited season situation. I think, to be honest, that's the wrong decision to be made by the league. They should be encouraging every team to play football, even if it's not competitive football. So host it as a friendly, the refs still going to be there, all that sort of thing. Maybe just don't let it count on the final scorecard. In terms of what needs to be done going forward to stop these sort of forfeits in the future, it's a really tough one to say. I think it's something that probably doesn't come down to a team by team basis. There's only so much recruiting a team can do by themselves, and realistically this is a player issue, right? As Alex mentioned a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, this is one of the fastest growing sports in Ireland, but we're seeing a decrease in the amount of players playing it in Ireland at the moment. That really doesn't compute. So the only thought I have in my head to make this kind of forfeiting situation go away is to really implement at a league basis kind of a promotion situation. So advertising on social media, to kind of get the word out there that, hey, this sport is being played, you can be a part of it, you can join a team, here's the teams that are available to join in Ireland. Because at the end of the day, it's a popular sport. Why aren't there more people playing it as opposed to less?
Yeah. Are you trying to get me to go off on the league socials again about things like that? Don't do that.
No. Look, we've been over that. We've been over that a few times. And I understand they're short-staffed, and I understand that resources, etc. There's a lot of comings and goings in terms of financials in the league, and advertising anything is going to cost money at the moment. Even if the leagues had got an excellent social media channel, it would still just be to the people who already follow the socials. So that's everybody already involved in the league. It's not garnering new support unless you are one of the lucky few to have that come up in your algorithm or whatever. So it would take some investment from the league, and I don't know if that kind of investment is possible. So
yeah,
no, Alex, I was just going to ask you there. Sorry. Just I just want to ask a question on top of obviously the questions I asked. Really made an interesting point there about the game itself last week, and obviously it is in the bylaws that if you do forfeit 2 games, your season is then forfeit. Now again, I wouldn't sort of as critical of the league as I have been the last couple of weeks and probably all season. I don't really begrudge them not trying to put this game in place and going ahead with it. It's like they're just following their own rules. But there was nothing to stop either team getting in contact and saying, here, lads, we're a bit away from each other. There is a bit of a drive. We're not too far away, but there's nothing stopping us here getting together on Sunday, having a joint training session, scrimmage, couple of, plays and stuff like that. For 2 teams that, are struggling for numbers, and 2 teams that probably need the sort of reps. I know it's the end of the season and nothing was going to happen after that, but still you could have taken some positivity out of it.
No, you're taking the points out of me, mate, there. Literally, that's exactly what I was going to say. I wonder how much appetite there was on either side to play the game. The Vipers have said, look, the league made the decision to cancel it, but I imagine the league looked at it with a sort of is either team actually going to play this, and just made it forfeit. I'm sure if both teams had said, oh look, we want to play this game this weekend, then the league would have no objection to them playing it. Like there's no way they would have stopped them playing it. But look, it's unfortunate again. The Vipers they did fall foul of the rules, and we've seen now those rules enacted before with the Eagles and Trinity as well. Just contrary to some comments that it only happens to teams from the north, it does happen down south as well. So look, the rules are there for a reason to prevent things like this happening in the future. And look, I wish those lads the best. Like, I want them to go and rebuild. Like, it's important. We have so few teams in the western half of this island. Like, there's no Galway team, there's a Limerick team, and there's the Vipers. There's no one else you would really consider a west of the island team.
Cork.
Cork, are they really? I'd still consider them slightly toward the east. But anyway, look, it's you're talking about slim pickings. So I'd hate to see another team from a large area go. I want to see them go and rebuild. They've got a good youth program there. They've got a number of people in the right place, good guys in there. So I still have faith that they will bounce back from that. I'd be more concerned about the Razorbacks. The Razorbacks have really just ended the season in a total nosedive. You're talking about starting the season with 50 players, and then that slowly chipping away to, I think against us, they maybe had 30. And then against the Cowboys, they forfeited the game with only 20 bit lads left. And supposedly, I heard people say that they've only 13 players left, and that's why they've forfeited their remaining games, because they simply don't have bodies to muster and put together. I think they're in danger because they're in a saturated market in Belfast. The Antrim Jets seem to be sort of bouncing back slightly and have put some positive stuff together. So I think they're in a bit of danger now, and I'd like to see the leadership there really. They're going to have a fight on their hands to sort of recruit, get people in, and be able to field the team next year. Maybe that's where something like if a league restructure is looked at in the AGM toward the end of the year, maybe a DV8's league or a Division 2, if there is a sort of rebirth of that might suit a team like that better.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, look, we don't want to see any team go, and we wish them all the best and everyone the best in the recruitment. Because we all just want to get good, strong squads that can fulfill 8-game seasons and hopefully more with these postseason games. I think just at the minute we haven't seen that.
Yeah, and look, listen, I think the Razorbacks have had probably one of the most turbulent seasons in recent AFI history. In like you mentioned, from where they were even like last season, being one game away from the playoffs, to get promotion, to obviously starting the season with as many players as they did, starting with a comprehensive win against the Vipers, and then seemingly like going downhill as the season went on. And obviously it reached a peak in the Giants game when Sultan made the decision to leave as head coach. And we've heard the rumors of players led not being happy with the coaching and the standard of it and stuff like that. And I can understand that. I'm not going to sit here and say that the coaching is right or the coaching was wrong, because I've never been coached by Sultan before. I've never even played in a game that Sultan has played in before, so I can't give that opinion. But if I wanted to do a sort of straight down the middle numbers sort of explanation of it, you had the numbers last season, you had the wins last season, albeit, look, listen, I think they won against teams that they were expected to win against, like the likes of the Jets and the Vipers. Again, you okay, if it was the players unhappy, the players have left, or the players got their wish and Suntan has left. Since Suntan has left, they haven't won a game, they haven't scored a point, and now they're forfeiting games. So I know there's probably areas, and look, he like Tan would be the first person to say that he's not right in everything, but he was doing something there to get something out of that team. And now that he's gone, the players that wanted him gone have him gone, but they don't seem to be able to get things going. Now, maybe could be down to the coaching, because that could, maybe someone that has to come in there that's a little more experienced, because I know they have a couple of young lads as OC and DC there, and maybe some more experience needs to come in. But we've talked about it on the show as well before, how hard it is to get coaches into teams. Mm-hmm. And you had one there, and obviously something was going wrong that made him want to leave. And for me, I think that decision is going to be huge in whether or not the club survives. I hope they do. And like I said, I'm just being a number straight down the middle, following what I've seen before Suntan was there and after Suntan was there. But I don't know. I don't know what your opinions would be on it.
BST and AST, they're your two Razorbacks eras. Before Suntan and after Suntan, yeah. Well, look, I think the Razorbacks were probably pretty well known for not having an off season while Suntan was there. So I think that's a risky strategy, and I think that bared out. That it's probably a big bone of contention, I would find, because I'm sure I've heard the same rumors that you have, that it was sort of a player led effort to get him out. I think when you're doing something like that, doing the no off season, and it's you're kind of been drilled every week of the year, and when things then started this season as they did with a big win against the Jets, great, everything's going fine, and then the losses start to rack up, you sort of think we've been doing the same thing for 3 consecutive years now, and we've actually regressed. So I think that sort of takes a mental toll on you, and maybe that's what led the players to make that decision. But as you said, after the fact, then after the players, again, there's got to have been some leaders behind it. It wasn't just like fringe players. After that decision is taken and you've made the move where you've removed your head coach, those same leaders have to be the ones to step up and rally everyone around and get the team galvanized and put something out on the field, because you've made that decision. That's like your reputation. You've made a huge call, and for them then to have a sort of a bit of an exodus of players after that, I think that's unfortunate, and that's I'd say that's bad form on the players. Like especially if it was the people behind getting Tana that are the people then leaving and joining other teams after that happens. I think you got to be the ones to stick behind and rebuild the ship. Now, again, I know there's still some good guys there, like Zach Appleyard's still there, and I back some of the other lads there to do a good job at rebuilding. I just hope they get the buy-in from other players and they haven't lost too much of a core that it's an impossible task,
Mm-hmm. And that's it. And reading what Alex says there is vitally important too, about the leadership in the team. It has to, whether or not the guys wanted Tan out, they still have to step up if they're going to be part of this team, and they're going to have to drag some people with them if that's the case, or they're going to have to come together and have a clear view on how to get players, how to approach this off season, how to sort of start coming up with offensive and defensive schemes, and just trying to get this team up to the level that before this season, where they were saying, I think, what was it, the 5-year plan to be into the Premier Division or something like that, trying to get some way back on track with that one. Obviously it'll have to be a new 5-year plan, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like the idea of a 5-year plan now should not look as optimistic as it did when they initially came up with their 5-year plan. So they shouldn't be looking at the Premier Division at all at this stage. It should be 1-year plan. Let's survive the year. Then 2-year plan. Let's get a win. Then 3-year plan. Let's just rebuild from here. I know it is super tough to get these things over the line. We're seeing it at the moment with the Pirates. It's tough. Like, even if you have 1 or 2 leaders in that team, 1 or 2 is not enough. You need to get yourself a core of really dedicated people. It's impossible to lift a club up by yourself. You need a core around you, and some of those people may just be, the legwork guys. They just do the job, maybe not the leader, but they get the job done. And then you have the leaders as well. It's tough to do it on your own. So I think once they get that core together, get that plan in place, they hopefully will be looking to survive and stay afloat. But like Alex said, it's a saturated market up there in Belfast. We see it year in, year out with this kind of carousel of players going around to different teams. I would be worried about them moving into next season.
Yeah. We just quickly, just a few of the comments that came in before the show and obviously during. I'll just go through a few of them here. The mentality should be more, how do we help teams and not how do we punish them? And I think we'd all be in agreement with that. That's the approach that we should be looking at. It's not something that we should be, punishing them for not being able to put players out. What do we think about if you forfeit a game in consecutive seasons, you are eligible to enter a team in the 3rd year, especially for multiple team locations? I can see where that point is coming from. But the problem is, you send a team away for a year, you are effectively killing that team because no one's going to hang around for a year just not to play football.
The number one fundamental goal of this sport should be to get more people playing it as opposed to prohibiting people from playing it. Like the first comment said, we should be looking to help rather than hinder. For me, that would just be a no-go.
Yeah. And look, Alex would probably be the one to hold hands playing. He's probably one of the most frustrated guys this season, having 2 games forfeited on him. That's 2 games of his league season gone. Nobody likes that. But it's all about coming to a constructive way. And, we've seen, and there was a few comments on Instagram as well when we went through it. And a lot of people are talking about the DV8 as a possibility. And I'd like to get your opinion, guys. I'll start Rian first on this one. A possibility, I'm guessing, as a new Division 2, I'm guessing it would be a DV8 league for teams that struggle with numbers. But what would your point of view be on that?
Yeah, I saw, so obviously our colleagues over on the Talking Balls podcast had a poll up kind of asking people's opinions on DV8s. It was very polarizing. A lot of people were talking down on the idea of a DV8s league as it being regressive in some form. If it gets more people playing the sport, I think it's 100% a good thing. I mean, even at the top level, you look at big clubs like the Rebels, maybe not so much this year. Their numbers seem to be a little bit lower than they have been, but say the Trojans, if they had their own DV8 team or Division 2 team where they could go and blood rookies, anybody who's coming back from an injury maybe can go down there, take a few snaps. I don't see how this is a bad thing, and you can start a club with 16 players essentially, and probably be okay for a DV8 season, given the kind of lower level of physicality. You don't have as many linemen on the pitch, and that's something that clubs struggle with all the time. Particularly the Pirates, we never ever had a full O-line that you could really consider to be an O-line. We had guys who were weighing in at 80 kilos or 90 kilos, and that's just not D-line or O-line size. So I can't see a downside to a DV8 league. Sure, we want to encourage everybody to get to that level where we're playing full kitted football, but at the same time, it is really prohibitive at the moment to start a club, and I think that's where the DV8 league will come into its own. Is a team in Galway, it could be just 10 guys get together and go, fuck it, sure, why not try? And then they recruit a couple of guys, and next thing you know, we have a team out in Galway. There's football back on the West Coast. I don't see an issue with the DV8 league.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with you, Brian, that there's no real issue with it. But I think the merits of putting it together come a lot down to timing. It all depends on who we have, who is going to put themselves forward for this DV8 league next year, right? Let's say, just out of argument's sake, the Vipers and the Razorbacks are like, right, we're struggling with numbers. We haven't had as big a recruitment as we wanted to have in the off season. We are gonna go, or even if they're like, oh no, we still think we can play Division 1, and the league audits them and decides, no, you don't have the like close enough to the numbers required. We're gonna put you down in DV8 next year. It can't just be those two teams. You need to also say, right, UCD, Rebels, Trojans, you also have a DV8 team now next year, and then they have to figure that out and scramble it. And you maybe hope that another team around the country, the Pirates, lads, are you still knocking about? Are we gonna? Would you like to try and enter in the DV8 league this year? Because it still has to be, the pool still has to be big enough for it to be worth it. There's no point doing a DV8 league when there's only two teams that want to compete in it. I think that's the biggest argument against it, that it has to be a cohesive effort. I think by the league probably has to work with smaller teams to get to a position where there is enough appetite for a DV8 league. So I think next year it's probably not a runner, because I don't think there's anyone really thinking about DV8s next year. No one's thinking about fielding a DV8 team next year right now. Everyone's thinking about putting a full kitted team together, and just one full kitted team to sort of get a run on it now, to ask other Premier Division teams to get a second team up and running, and maybe some teams like the Pirates to consider coming back. I think the effort would have had to have started before that. And again, it's another point where that's where the league needs to coordinate with several vested, in interest. And again, we don't have privy to that. I have no idea if the league have guys in Galway who are interested in starting a team and they're like liaising with them. I have no real knowledge on that. But I'd say there probably isn't. Now, whether or not there's an actual appetite for a team there is another, an entirely different thing. And the league obviously can't be held to task for not having a team in Galway. It's not their responsibility to spring teams up out of nowhere. So it's really difficult. It is like, and to give the league a bit of credit, it is a really difficult thing to get right. I think the DV8s, there's merits to doing a DV8 league, but you can't just throw one out there as a bargain basement here. Anyone who's left, jump in here. I think it has to be done properly.
Yeah. For me, the DV8s, I don't have a problem with the idea of a DV8 league. The problem that I have is, there's so many things that are going to have to be ironed out to make it viable. Like, first of all, like, is there a compulsory thing that you have to go down to a DV8 league? Are you going to say, if you don't have 20 registered players by Christmas, you're going into a DV8 league for a season? If you have 21, you have to stay up in Division 1. If teams that stay, I have a worry that teams that stay in the DV8 league for too long will always be a DV8 team, and I don't see how they're going to get the players registered, enough players registered to go up. Because let's say they're in the DV8 league for 2 seasons, they get 21 players, and then they make that run up to Division 1. 21 players registered is still not really enough to go through Division 1. You're still going to see struggles with that, and then you're still going to see forfeits. You're still going to see teams not completing seasons and not completing games. And then what happens to them? They just go back down to DV8 for another few years and then try it again. What you want is to have these teams at a point where they're constantly able to fulfill fixtures, and constantly able to compete in games. You don't want them to be able to be a yo-yo club going up and down the whole time. So if there was a change in league structure and they want to bring back a Division 2, I would still like to keep that as a full 11v11 league. I'd still like to keep that as close to what we can do. You can experiment with, you know, I like the idea. I was speaking to a few people about it during the week. I like the idea of shorter quarters, maybe 8-minute quarters for Division 2. Like if you're using it as a purely developmental league, none of these punishments for forfeiting and stuff like that. Even if you want to instead have like a youth league blitz style thing where all the teams are playing in the one location on the day. You know, 1 week, say if it's, let's just say it's the Pirates, the Vipers, the Jets, and the Razorbacks. 1 week they play the fixtures at Razorbacks home ground, the next week the Vipers, the next week the Pirates, and so on and so forth. You know, sort of do make it as easy as possible for these teams that are trying to get a squad together so that they can play games. You know, just try anything that you can to make it a little different, but still keep it at that 11v11 so you can still try and build your squad. Because I just worry that if you have games of smaller numbers, that it's just going to attract those smaller numbers the whole time. And if you do ever get to a position where you can go up, you're really behind the 8 ball so much more in terms of you're more than likely to come back down. Because again, let's say, for example, it's a brand new team in Galway. These lads will not have played 11v11 before if they do go up. So this is going to be whole new to them as well. And they've only learned the DV8 style of play. And like Reen was just mentioning about like O-linemen, it kind of hurts when you need like O-line and D-line DV8s because the numbers required for that are so much less. And then you go to Division 1 and you've realized, shit, we don't have a left or a right tackle. You know, we don't have an edge rusher. You know, what are we meant to do? So that's just
a big one is the punter as well. There's no punting in the DV8 league, so they won't have a kicker or a punter on their
yeah,
roster.
but sure, you have these sort of issues from starting a team from scratch. You're not going to have any fuckers who played any kid football. They'll be going straight in, you know, from just playing rugby or whatever. You know, you've got to. There's always going to be a sort of a steep learning curve. I still think it's better to go from DV8s to full 11 aside than straight from nothing into having to cling on in a division like Division 1. Like at the minute if a new team comes in, like realistically, they're just going to have to be slotted in at the bottom of Division 1 and they're going to get their asses kicked for the first several years. So I feel like something like a DV8's developmental league, again, and I don't think it should be a sort of thing you drop down into regularly. But if you've had a forfeit season, your team is sort of, it's not like a fully functioning team. If your season has had to be deemed forfeit by the league, there's something slightly broken with it. It has to be brought down to be sort of, you know, redeveloped, redefined. A new crop of lads come in, like again, like taking the Vipers, for example, they've got a good youth intake. They've got a number of guys that are already used to playing a sort of a DVA style. Get them in there, grow them. If they have a year down there or something, I just feel like you have a better chance of holding on to lads longer and developing more of a culture. Because if you look at someone like the Cowboys and the Mavs, just for example, we've been through 0-8 seasons in the SBC or whatever. We've been through bad seasons even in the first division. We would be teams who we'd do anything but forfeit the game. I remember we had a game against the Jets in Division 2 where we had 15 guys starting. I think we had 12 finishing the game. You just, when you have that sort of core of players built up, they've played it for a long time. You've got a sort of what's the word I'm thinking of? A sort of positive attitude within the club, like, you know, that sort of mindset where, you know, you've got 8 games and a season starts and you're doing your damnedest to play every single one of the games. So you're down guys, you're filling in positions you never play, you know, like you're more sort of, I don't know, resilient or something. You just have a sort of experience around you that, you know, your effort is all geared towards playing the games, taking part in them, finishing out the seasons. I think it's easier to do that having come from a developmental league where you've had years to build and put something together and get used to each other, rather than you're just joining the brand new sport. You're in with guys who've been at this, you know, a new club, and it's only a year or two playing experience, and their only experience is getting beat for 3 years. You know, are you going to stick around with that sport when you've got no sort of, you know, no one to look up to and to sort of take you along with the ride and say like, oh, look, it isn't always like this. We're building something here. Or like, you know, like I think with the Razorbacks, like that growth that they had is almost artificial. And what we've seen from it now is the end of the season where they have got really small numbers because they ballooned up, and there was no sort of developmental. So like there can't have been that. There's no like, well, maybe there is, and I think they can correct me. I'll apologize to whoever it is, but the Razorbacks to me don't really have a sort of team identity outside of what Suntan and Lindsay and the rest of them created there over the last 3 years. They don't really have an identity because they kind of were a new team. There was a total rebrand. They redid like nearly everything about the club. Like historically, the Razorbacks were sort of a joke. Like they were the beaten stick for a long time. Then they came in and had this sort of artificial growth, but they didn't have the sort of team, I would say, culture. That's the word I was looking for earlier. The team culture to say, all right, lads, we've gotten rid of our head coach. We need to knuckle down here, stick it out, and we can't be forfeiting games after this. We really just have to put everything into finishing out this season. And we know there's a rebuild coming, but we're prepared to do that because we've been here for years and we have an attachment to this club, and we really are going to do everything to keep it going. Is there someone there at the Razorbacks at the minute that can do that has that sort of drive to do it? I don't know. I know with the Mavericks, if I was hit by a bus, the Mavericks would continue. There'd be no problem because there is half a dozen guys there that would be pick up the mantle from me and stick their name in a hat for president and do everything they could to help the board keep the club going. You know, I think that's an important thing that I just don't think you get if you're putting a team in Galway and dropping it into a first division as it stands.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for my rambling.
No, shut up. You're good. You're getting good at this podcasting thing here, Alex, for sure.
Nah.
If you want to be proud, that was a good ramble.
No, look, I do agree with you though. Like the system at present, where it's Premier Division, Division 1, does not give new teams a chance. I do fully agree with you. The way the system is at the moment, it doesn't give new teams a chance. It doesn't give struggling teams a chance. Although people will complain that it didn't work the season before, turning Division 2 into a developmental league, I think was the right move. And I think it's something that they should look back at. Look, yes, it was shitty in terms of, what happened with Trinity and the fact that they couldn't finish games. And I know Air Force game didn't go ahead with the Eagles, but that wasn't because of a numbers thing. That was just a whole ambulance, and that was something beyond their control. But I think, having some sort of, I think we are in an agreement that a 3-division system is going to have to come back in some form. It's not 2 divisions. It's just not going to be working in the way forward. Yes, okay. The teams that are doing well in Division 1 and constantly will do well in Division 1 will probably say, no, look, listen, keep it as is. But it's about continuing to grow the league. It's about getting that team back in Connacht. It's about getting more teams on the western side of the country. Sorry, Eastern has loads already. Even getting maybe a couple of more teams in the middle of the country. It's like you said, Rian, it's about growing the sport. And I feel at the moment the focus on, with all the conversation of growing the sport here, is in terms of getting an NFL game here or getting more NFL access here. That's not what we're on about. We're on about growing the local game here. We're like, we don't care about, well, obviously you do care. You'd love an NFL game here, but it's all about how to grow the sort of the local game. It's the FAI and the Electricity League all over again in American football form here. They're caring about the big international stage, and they're, throwing shade at the local game and not caring about it, and took a long time for them to fight on it. One of the last comments there from sorry?
It's the Irish way,
It is. Well, look, it is the Irish way. One of the last comments there from Dara Farrell, and I know we're way over time here talking about this. This was only meant to be 20 minutes, but it's been a fascinating discussion. Why don't the Jets and the Razorbacks join together and merge their clubs? Well, look, listen, I think that's going to happen unofficially anyway, because I've heard of rumors of a few lads going back to the Jets who originally left the Jets to go to the Razorbacks, so it's kind of happening unofficially. Logistically, if you met the Vipers somewhere in the middle, you could add them too, and then if not, then deviate in a blitz form. Would work if you are going to go to deviate through. A blitz form of it is grand, and I guess it'd be up to you. I don't know if you could probably get more than one game for a team in a day if you wanted to do that as well. Let's see, what's this from Chris? Perhaps some of the bottom teams need to learn a more inward approach on themselves. It's not the league's responsibility to grow teams. That's true. Also, it is true. Like we said, there has to be strategies in place to grow it, and it's not just a sit. I don't agree with it's not as simple of just do better. We're not going to say that. I don't believe that at all. Yeah. There is, sorry, Ring.
No, just that one comment kind of sticks with me a little bit. And yes, it is true. Teams should be responsible for growing their own team, but there should be resources in place for teams to learn how to do this. There should be league resources in place on how to effectively recruit and how to effectively grow the club and how to effectively budget. Because if you have a guy like, say, me, who's into the sport but doesn't know the ins and outs of a club, has never been involved in a club before, it's going to be tough for him to set up a team. It's going to be tough for him to recruit because he doesn't know the proper strategies. I think it's more about sharing the knowledge more so than let's just get the league involved and make sure the league makes teams be around. It's more a case of everybody needs to get involved together, pool resources and information, not so much financial resources, but bodies, and just make it an easier sport to... I'm not doing a very good job of explaining this. Make it more accessible to everybody. Because at the moment, I am in that process of trying to bring back a club, and it is fucking difficult because I've never been involved in a club before outside of American football. So, yeah, if there was any resources available, I would be absolutely happy to have them.
Well, that's where the idea of talking to clubs outside of football could be a good thing to do. Of American football, I should say, looking at other local teams and say, look, what are you doing season to season to grow your team? What was it at the start to grow to get things and keep the numbers? This still loads of comments I still have to get through here as well.
If you're thinking in sort of long-term growth, you take a leaf out of the Mavs book. I think 5 Mavericks are currently expecting babies. So in 18 years' time, 5 more players for the team. So, you got to just think.
He's thinking long term. He's thinking long term there.
Big time.
That's until they realize they don't want to be Mavericks.
That's until they all come out with blonde hair and blue eyes. No. Track that statement. I love my wife very dearly and do not fancy sleeping on the couch tonight.
This one here, DV8 stands for Developmental Aids Football, and it's hard to set up any club. It's not up to the league if you want to set up, be driving to be set up to be driving and do what every club in the league was formed. And then Rian, Darius Farrell's happy to discuss anything UCD with you if you ever want help through setting things up. So you've already gotten some help on that. very quickly, just a few things in the Instagram comments on the live there. Mentioned the 3-tier system to the commissioner. You'll hear back in about 4 years. Yeah. There can't be a league without teams, so I think league have to take some responsibility. I honestly can't say other than suspending players and supplying to refs. What the fuck do they do? Oh, in terms of the league. Bring back Brian Cleary. 90% of the time I mention football, I get, oh, they play that here. And I think that's a big thing as well. I think that's a huge thing. It's you always. I'm sure we're all like that as well. If we're ever out anywhere, we say, "Oh, we play American football." And says, "Oh, is there a league?" You know, it's not. It's not mentioned. It's not advertised enough. And look, listen, that's a whole league giving out thing again that I'm not getting into because there's already so much more time. But there are small things that can be done. Like here, one of the comments earlier on today, lengthen the season, give more time between games. Ironclad schedule by Christmas is what I liked about that. I like the idea of having the schedule set by Christmas so guys can, if they want to, you know, set their holiday schedule around their fixtures, they can do that if they're that way inclined.
Yeah, it's a very tight turnaround on that, though. You've got like supposed to be AGM in November, audits in December, and then schedule in January. So, like, it is a pretty hard and fast turnaround.
Can move all them forward a month.
Yeah, I think there's something in our constitution about the AGM time because it was posited about moving back before. I know what you're saying, and again, the length in the season stuff. I mean, does he mean length in the season as in the frame and within which the 8 games plus playoffs are played, or have more games? Because I'm all for having more games, but I think the way the schedule is at the moment is fine for the 8 games. The March, the July. I don't know. What would your opinion of it be?
See, I think it works perfectly at the moment because it's it kind of flips opposite to the rugby season.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. We can't get the rugby club before mid-April at the earliest.
Yeah.
So we can't play home day, and I think a lot of teams are in the same boat, and it's why the league calendar is as it is.
Yeah, and I think it's the same. I learned it was the same over at the Rhinos as well. I think they normally ask for at least the first 2 games to be away from home because they can't get Castleknock College before that time, just due to the school and exams. A big thing as well, league audits. It was a common factor, a common thread in discussions, and obviously I'm not sure, Alex. Obviously, being president of a club, you would know yourself in terms of audits this year. If there was any done, no,
don't believe they have. Maybe like again, I've spoken to a few teams in Division 1 that would be in the admin of their own team, and they did not get audited. So I don't know whether no one got audited or just 1 or 2 got audited. But I've asked at least 2 teams, and they haven't got audited. And I would have thought we'd have been up for audit because we're pretty slow on the registration front. Our players, I shouldn't probably say it publicly, but our players usually don't fucking pay for the league register fee until I'm like, right, if you don't fucking pay this week, you won't be eligible to play week 1. And
I think a lot of clubs are like that. I think a lot of clubs are like that for sure. But look, listen, great discussion. It's something that I think we'll look at again when we do our end of season wrap up after the Shamrock Bowl and stuff like that, because we've talked for nearly an hour about it and we still haven't talked about any actual football happening this weekend. Look, listen, lads, great discussion. Thank you to everybody who's put the comments in either before the show, during the show here. A few of them we were able to pop up on screen. Again, it is obviously as popular as it's something that really has to be sat down and discussed with some sort of plan to come up at least before the AGM. But anyway, look, let's look at football. Let's look at football this weekend. The Half Bowl this Saturday, semi-finals. You know, the most important game of the season for 2 people on this stream for sure. the Mavericks and the Rhinos, a repeat of the game 2 weeks ago in which the Mavericks took it 30-0. Same venue as well. You know, it's just something about, you know, playoff football. It's exciting, isn't it? It's second time playing playoff football. Obviously, last year we were all playing playoff football. This one that obviously you got into by winning games, it's exciting. Looking forward to it. Rian, seeing as you're the unbiased party in this game, what are you looking at for Mavericks Rhinos? Are you looking at the game 2 weeks ago, and is that in your thinking, or do you think that no, maybe teams are holding back and we're probably going to see a truer reflection of where both teams are at this Saturday?
Yeah, I would be interested to see if any teams were holding back anything from their playbook. From my experience with the Mavericks, I sometimes find that they beat guys by being very fundamentally sound. So I don't think they probably changed their playbook a whole lot last week. And I'd say they're going to go into the game with a similar sort of mindset, beat the Rhinos with fundamentals, run the ball well, throw in the pass, and make sure they're stout on defense. From the Rhinos side of things, I think it's really important that they get their offense going in this game. So we were talking a little bit before the game. There wasn't very much passing offense going on the Dublin Rhinos side of things. So I want to see that becoming more of a factor in this game, maybe throw the Mavericks off guard a little bit. And I think it's going to come down to score early. The only way that you're going to beat a fundamentally sound team like the Mavericks is by rocking them a little bit, by getting ahead and staying ahead. You never want to play catch up against a team as good as the Mavericks. So I think that's going to be the key for the Rhinos moving into this one.
Mm-hmm. You know, Alex, you know, there's been game tape to look at. You know, you've had prep, just much like the Rhinos. You know, it's tough, you know, playing the same opponent 2 weeks in a row and trying to think, well, what are they going to do to counter this? What are we going to do to try and counter that? The old adage is it's tough to beat a team twice in the season, and hopefully, obviously, from my point of view, it's definitely going to be like that on Saturday.
Yeah, look, I mean, that's why I'm on the administration side rather than coaching side, because I'd lose my mind trying to think like, oh, should we do this instead of that, or no, the other team might be thinking we'll do this, and we were hiding that. I just couldn't be going into all that information. Yeah, look, as I've said before, offensively, I've no idea if we were hiding anything or not. I am no longer a two-way player, so I no longer care about the offense and what they do. Defensively, we've been playing the same way. We have all year, and I will continue to play that way. And just hopefully it works as well. I'm sure you guys will have made some adjustments. So early on, you'll probably we'll see what way you guys are coming out, and we'll have to make adjustments in kind to see can we slow you down again or do whatever we can that puts us with the best opportunity to win. So without going into too much further coach speak, I'll leave it there.
Okay, if you want, you can go into admin speak instead if you want and just look at purely numbers ahead of this game. That's all right. Rain, you are going to be the deciding factor. Rhinos versus Mavs Saturday. Who is going to go to the final on the 27th of July?
I've got to take the Mavs, but only because I think the Mavs and the Cowboys are the most deserving across the whole season to be playing in a bowl game. I want to see that matchup happen again, so I'm taking the Mavs in this one.
Okay. All right. On to the other semi-final. Craigavon Cowboys against the Wexford Eagles. A repeat of a regular season game as well. Earlier on, I think it finished 37-0 in favor of the Cowboys. So, and they are definitely, obviously, going through the season unbeaten. The only blemish was that draw with yourselves, Alex. I'll go to you first on this one. You know, the Eagles made it there the final day. They got it into the playoffs. They have this game traveling back up to Craigavon. They have an idea of what to expect now after playing the game in the regular season. Do you think that they would have learned enough in that time to come up with a plan that's going to stop that offense and obviously try and score on that defense?
Yeah, look, they certainly have a plan. I was up in Portadown that day watching the Eagles Cowboys game, and the Eagles were not played off the park by any stretch. You know, they got the ball in scoring positions a few times, couldn't punch it in. So I'm sure they'll be looking hard at that tape and seeing what they can pick up and use from it. I think Luke Fitzgerald also got injured quite early in that game. So look, I hope both teams have a full strength team, and I hope both teams take it out of each other. So whoever either of us play Dara in the final is softened up a wee bit, you know.
Well, that's it. Plenty of time for that for sure. Rian, you know, what are you looking at ahead of this game? What are going to be the important things that the Eagles are going to have to do to stand the chances a little harsh for them? Obviously, you know, 1 versus 4 seed. You know, the odds are heavily in favor of the 1 seed. Obviously, when you're unbeaten too, and you know they've had to work for it into their last day, but you know they're proving that they're a team that they can grind out results. And you know, with Coach Klatt there, he always has a plan.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's going to boil down to the Eagles' nothing to lose mentality in this one. I don't think there's many people out there who give them much of a shot against the Cowboys, who have just dominated everybody, with the exception of the Mavericks in every single game this season. So, yeah, it's going to be a mental attitude. And again, I think it boils down to scoring early. I think in this one, it's going to be really important for the Eagles to reduce the length of that game, so run the ball efficiently. And we know they're very capable of doing that, because if you don't slow the game down, Peter Loughran is going to hurt you through the air. So big key for them would be to get their running backs going early and often, and just try and slow that win down, maybe grind out a low scoring win. I don't see it as impossible myself, but I will be probably backing the Cowboys in this one.
Yeah. Well, look, if I'm Coach Clatton and the Eagles, the first plan I'm making of is if I win that toss, I'm taking the ball, score first, try and put the fear into the Cowboys, and go into the game thinking that it's going to be a shootout. Anytime you have the ball, feel like you're going to have to score, not because you don't feel like your defense is going to be able to stop Peter Sunshine, that offense of the Cowboys, just that you know that they are so good that they will find a way to score. So you're just going to have to feel like you have to score in every play. The thing is that the defense of the Cowboys is just so sneakily good. It's just so, because of how good the offense of the Cowboys is, the defense flies under the radar so much, in terms of it doesn't get a lot of plaudits that it does deserve, you know. It's kept teams to single digit scores in almost every game this year. The only team to have scored multiple points on them was actually yourself, Alex, with the Mavs, I believe. That's without me actually checking the stats. Sorry, the Crusaders as well. Crusaders did that too, to them up there in People's Park during the season. So I still think I'm going to fancy the Cowboys though to win this one. I don't think the Eagles are going to have enough. And even if they don't, listen, you came up from Division 2 last year. You've gotten to the semi-final of the playoffs. That's a fantastic year. Absolutely fantastic year for them. And it's something to really grow on ahead of next season, and maybe take that step further for the following playoffs if they do make it. So let's move on into Premier Division. We'll quickly go and chat about the Shield semi-final, the Admirals and the Vikings. The winner of this gets to play the Knights again on July the 21st for the inaugural Shield final. The Vikings coming off that disappointing loss to the Knights at home. The Admirals, of course, coming off that loss against the Trojans, which meant they were in the Shield instead of the Shamrock Bowl playoffs. Very quickly, Alex first, who do you think is going to win this game?
Yeah, it should be a cracker. Good first game of the season. The Admirals have looked really good coming down the stretch here, and they've done pretty good in a couple of games, whereas the Vikings have sort of slipped a little bit since securing their place in the Premier Division next year. So for that reason, I'm going to pip Cork this week.
Yeah, I think as well the draw in the first game of the season will be weighing heavily on the Admirals' minds, particularly in the fashion that they drew that game. So they're going to be well up for this one. We've seen that offense start to click. So I'm going to be taking the Admirals in this one as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm going to go with the Admirals, make it a clean sweep. I think the fact that they're at home as well, although I know it's not the biggest distance to go, but still having home field advantage, some sort of advantage, I believe. So I think they will have enough. And then they'll head up to Dublin on July the 21st. Also, I should mention this, actually. We got an interesting comment there. Not an interesting, but a good one there for any Wexford Eagles listeners. PSA, this is from Scotty Buchanan. Tell the Eagles that their bus driver should avoid Scarva on Saturday, otherwise you'll be delayed with the parades. So it's just so you know, guys. Just so you know, just a little PSA. Right, Shamrock Ball semi-finals. Let's talk about the second and third seed game. That is the Dublin Rebels against the South Dublin Panthers, down at De La Salle. The Rebels coming off a 7-1 season. 7-1 season. I should have really had the tables beside me, but yeah, 7-1 season. Very successful at their only loss, of course, against UCD. The Panthers are coming off, we've talked about a turbulent couple of a season for the Razorbacks. The last couple of weeks for the Panthers alone has been unbelievable in terms of, stories coming out of the club and issues that the team has had, all culminating in that loss, the huge 62-40 or 62-20, loss against UCD on the final day of the season. Lads, I'll start with you, Reinforce, on this one. Obviously, it's been well reported the issues that Ty Henry's had injury wise this season, yet he still goes out and he still performs to a very, very high level. Is that high level still going to be enough to beat this Panthers defense, which has gone from being one of the stronger units at the start of the year to unfortunately declining to, liable to concede? I mentioned it on the show. Their last 3 games before the UCD game, they conceded 30 points in each game. So it's something that the Panthers are going to really, really have to clean up ahead of Sunday to stand a chance.
100%. I think part of that was down to the kind of strength of schedule as it got towards the end of the season. They started coming up against more difficult opposition, certainly stronger offensive units. I was there at the game the previous time between the Rebels and the Panthers. The Panthers did not look totally outplayed on the day. They had some turnover issues with Matty O'Mara just stepping in practically off the plane. So, yeah, I think with a little bit of extra time in that offense, they'll be hurting after that loss against UCD. They do have a chance in this one to kind of make things right and set themselves up with a date in Athlone with either UCD or the Trojans. So yeah, they'll be well up for this one. Do I fancy them to win the game? No, probably not. Rebels in De La Salle, it's going to be difficult for them. So I'm probably going to take the Rebels in this one. But I think it's going to be closer than the last game that they played.
Yeah. You're probably right there, Ray, and definitely agree with most of your points there. I think the Panther. We really just don't know about where the Panthers are at. I mean, you'd hope they're all banding together and really just sort of the leaders of that team are taking everyone and just being like, look, we have one shot this weekend, and it would be the biggest, bar the bowl win. Obviously, it would be probably the biggest win in the Panthers' history if they pull off the upset and beat the Rebels. It is a big rivalry match, but they've had just so much turmoil around them of late to end the season. I do worry for them a little bit. We don't know who's taking the coaching reins, do we? Fion's
No, we
Fion's
don't know yet, and
under lock and key in Finn Kearns' basement.
Well, that's it, and that's one name that I was going to bring up as well, because
Fionn Malloy.
Finn's in Fionn Malloy, him, or the guy that got introduced to Brandon Atwell in the worst way possible. But no, Finn's injury just came at the absolute worst time. They had the plan set up for Matty to come in and for to have Sean, Finn, and then obviously you have Jamie Leonard there, and then you obviously have the running backs of Luke Carey and Connor Hoskins. They were hoping that was going to be the offense to take them to the Shamrock Bowl, and Finn's injury just came at the worst time. And it takes such a dangerous weapon out that it makes the opposing defenses one less worry for them. And the offense has still ran well. Matty has shown each game that he's played how more comfortable he's getting in the Panthers offense, how familiar he's getting with his receivers and how familiar his receivers are getting with him. It's always tough in this league where, obviously it being an amateur league, having someone come in mid-season in such a pivotal position like quarterback is tough, because unfortunately, we don't have the ability. Well, I don't know what these guys' work schedules are like. Maybe they do, but we don't have the ability to be going out 2-3 evenings a week, practicing routes and catching footballs and building a chemistry between receivers and quarterbacks. So, if it's the case that Matty is sticking around for the long term, it's going to be beneficial going forward for next season for the team, absolutely. But for this season and this week specifically, I just think that it's just going to be too much of an ask to go to De La Salle and beat a Rebels team that are just, I don't know what it is, but they look like they're pissed off. And I think that's and especially Ty, and pissed off Ty Henry is a dangerous Ty Henry, injury or not. So I would fancy the Rebels to win, and I'd say by at least 2 scores in this game on Sunday. Final game to look at is, of course, statistically the best team in the country, UCD, finishing first in the regular season in Premier Division, facing off against the Belfast Trojans. The Trojans, of course, beating the Admirals on the final day of the season to make the playoffs and make this game down in Dublin at UCD. Lads, it's a tough ask for the Trojans, but this is a Trojans team that has played UCD closer than any other side so far this year. So the Trojans are going to come down to Dublin, and they're not going to be overawed by the prospect of having to face UCD.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's they'll be buoyed by that performance that they put in Dermore Park. They were, if memory serves correct, pretty much a play away from taking the lead late on in that game. Now it is a different prospect going down to UCD. Long journey down. You don't have the home fans, but this is playoff football. It's any given Sunday. The Trojans, even though maybe they didn't have the season that they were expecting coming into it, are one game away from the biggest game of them all. So yeah, credit to the Trojans. I don't think they'll be fearing UCD, even with that tune-up game that UCD got last week, putting in 60 points versus the Panthers. So yeah, it's going to be a close game, and maybe a difficult one to call. The easy option, the easy out will be to go with the team in form at UCD, but yeah, I'm not 100% sure of that pick.
Yeah, I mean, the UCD have looked in fine form offensively. That massive game last week against the Panthers, another big game against the Minotaurs in recent memory, and then they obviously had that Rebels game that was called off in the third quarter. I think the Trojans are the only team to keep them to keep UCD score below 20, even possibly even 30, I think, from memory, bar the Rebels UCD game, as I mentioned, that was called off in the third quarter. Like, they held them to 16 points in Deramore. So that's no mean feat. Their defense will go in there, like, really buoyed by that fact, and they'll go in, like, in the mindset of, we just need to do what we did last time and then trust the offense to get, more than 2 scores, and we can win this game. So they'll go into it with plenty of belief, and they won't be going down there just to take part. They'll definitely be going down there to try and get back to a bowl game. It's been a while for the Trojans. So, I'm with Rian here. I think this is going to be the closer of the 2 semi-finals. And I think either team could win here, really.
Yeah, it is tough, and I think Chris would be quick to tell you as well that the Trojans went down for a pre-season sort of joint scrimmage with UCD, and he said they played them very close that game as well. So it's an interesting matchup, like you mentioned. The toughest game that UCD have been in all season. The Trojans had 8 plays, I believe, within 2 yards of the goal line of UCD to win that game, and UCD's run defense or goal line defense was monstrous and just did a fantastic job to keep them out. We've seen the last few weeks as well that Dom is getting better and better and getting more comfortable at the quarterback position. He probably wouldn't have had the season he would have expected or would have liked to have had. Their run game is dangerous. They've got plenty of really good running backs that can hurt UCD's defense on the UCD side of things. I believe Tom Donovan is back this week. He missed their top touchdown scorer, missed the game against the Panthers, and they were still able to put up 60 points again on them. Brandon Atwell was fantastic. Rory O'Dwyer is a fantastic running back too. They have some really, really solid depth there. Some rookies there that are starting to make impacts now this late in the season as they're getting used to playing, competitive football, which is going to be vitally important too. So I unfortunately I can't see past UCD on this one. It's a kind of, I'm backing them until they prove that I shouldn't have, sort of thing. And obviously by that stage it'd be too late to be out anyway, so I can't back them anymore this season. But yeah, I don't know. I just feel like we're destined to go to Dewberry Park on the 27th of July and seeing the third installment of UCD and Rebels. I just can't see any other scenario. And I think we're all in agreement there.
I'm on the same page as you.
That's absolutely fair. I think as much as I would like to, it's hard to say. I think if you consider everything together, on the weekend of the 12th of July, the green flag probably won't be flying in Belfast.
Right. On that note, I think that's where we're going to wrap up this edition of the show. Lads, I'm sorry I had it run over a little bit extra this week. Just so much to talk about, even though there's less games. There's always still loads of stories around the AFI. It's worse than Coronation Street at times. Rian, thank you so much as always.
It's been a while.
Alex, look forward to seeing you on Saturday. I have your 49ers jersey to give back to you. Don't worry, it's been used to clean up.
Spotted around several North Dublin hotspots, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, cleaning up dog shite everywhere. Don't worry about that. Until next week, make sure you are following us on our socials at UnderCenterPod on Instagram and on Twitter. We'll keep you up to date with the latest scores. And I can't do tables anymore. There's no need to do tables anymore. But latest scores anyway over the weekend. We'll be back next week. Right here, same place, same time. To look back at those games. Hopefully Alex won't be too upset about losing the game. But look, listen, we'll see. And we will obviously break down all the other games and look ahead to, of course, the Shamrock and Heart Bowl and the Shield and Plate finals as well, because that'll be that week too in the Sports Campus in Blanche. So it'll be 2 games to look forward to as well. But until next time, stay safe and we'll see you soon.